Hello, in this video I will explain how to use the main procedures and functions of our system. Here we see the default login page, where it is possible to register or log in. The registration menu is standard, requiring simply your name, email address and password. I already have an account, therefore I will log in. After the login page, we arrive at the main menu where there is a button to create a new project and a list of projects that have been recently used. Let's go to the project titled Mixing. On the left, we have a library of the object classes. Objects are made by simply dragging and dropping the chosen one with your mouse from the library to the main diagram. You can then move them by dragging the top left-hand corner. On the right of the object, there is also a delete button. Let's add an object with the class input. Let's add another one to model a typical process of mixing two components. In order to do this, let's add a process object. Two components, input 1 and input 2, are going to be mixed in the process that is currently called process 1. We will add an arrow from input 1 to the process. To do this, click on the top right-hand corner of the input and then click on its associated object, in this case process 1. We will do the same for input 2. If necessary, it is possible to delete an unwanted arrow by simply using the delete key on your keyboard. Let's return it for now. Double-click on an object to get a menu of its characteristics to appear on the right. In this case, we open the characteristics of input 1. It has an ID, a name. Let's name it raw1. The object is in the class input. We now see how renaming it has changed its appearance on the main dashboard. Here we see the possible classes of the object, so they are equivalent to the ones that are available in the library of object classes on the left. Object type is not yet fully activated, but in the future will be available to group objects together. There's also a possibility to add a description for the object for personal use. Here we have outlined that this is our main raw material, and we will fill in the object type for completeness. Let's make this oil, for example. Lower down, we see a description of the parameters defining our object. Each object has 3 main parameters: price, rate, and cost. And on the right, we have ticks under the S column, allowing the parameters to be seen under the object on the main screen. By default, they are visible, but the ticks can be removed and then the parameters are no longer visible. Lower down, there is an option to add more parameters. Let's make the parameters visible so they can be seen on the main diagram. Let's now add values to these parameters. Let's say 1,000 for the cost, Rate in this case is the supply speed of the component into the mixing process, in this case into the barrel. The cost should be a product of the price and rate. If we press the button to the right of the parameter, the downwards arrow, we now have access to individual characteristics of the parameter itself, where you can assign certain attributes and then modify them. This window can be accessed for any parameter, both default and any additional ones you have created. Let's see, the rate is the quantity of material entering the barrel every hour. Let's close this window and open the window for the cost. For the cost, we want to create a formula that will calculate the product of the price and the rate of the material entering the barrel. This is the formula dialog, where we can choose the parameters that will be part of our formula. Let's choose input class, the object raw1, and the parameter price, which we will add to the formula, multiplied by the rate. Likewise, including it using the add button. And now pressing OK, we get a value for the cost, which is the product of the price and the rate. Let's do the same thing for the second object. First, let's call this object raw2. We can see that the name has changed. The price will be set at 25,000. A bit bigger than last time. And the rate will be variable. So we would like to be able to change it. In order to vary it, we need to alter its control type. We know that it will be visible in the diagram, as there is a tick under its corresponding box. And then we scroll down and select slider in the control type menu. And the rate is now visible on the object in the form of a slider. The slider has 3 parameters, a minimum value, a maximum value, and the value of the step. We will say that the rate will vary from 10 until 30 with a step of 1. Now we can see how it changes with the slider. Now for the cost, we will use the same formula as before, selecting the input class, object raw2, and the parameter price. Remove the 0, multiplying the price by the rate. We get our intended formula. Pressing OK, we see that it has completed our chosen calculation. Then we change the value of the rate using the slider, and we see that the value of the cost changes accordingly. Let's close the window of the cost parameter, and now we will go to the process. Double-clicking on the object will open up its menu. We will undo all the ticks from the parameters, as we don't need to view these standard parameters for this process in the main diagram. We will now add our own parameter, which will be called the resultant rate. So it will be the amount of material flowing out of the barrel. Its formula will be the rate of the first raw material added together to the rate of the second raw material. Clicking OK, we see that nothing is visible under the process object, as we haven't ticked the box which allows it to be shown in the diagram. So I will do this now. And we also need to press the button Add Parameter. Now this parameter is shown on the object and on the main diagram. And as we can see, it is the sum of the rates of the inputted components. We will change the name of this parameter to overall rate. Now it is visible. Now using this button we can slide back this panel. The size of the main diagram can be changed using the slider at the top of the screen. We also have an undo button if you accidentally delete an object and want to restore it. You can use this undo button.